Hello YouTube! 'Tis I, Root-1, and this is a Kerbal Space Program Challenge video. This is my submission for Challenge 32 on the Kerbal Space Program Challenges Discord, and, well, yeah, it's pretty good. The challenge this week was to create a space station, or to put a space station into orbit around a bunch of different places. I'm not quite sure how the scoring system works, but I can say that I did Mun, Ike, Paul, Lath, and Tylo. So Cadman's, I'm not sure how many points I get for that. I think it's 20, but yeah. So there you could see the construction of the space station that I will be putting around all of said places. And this is my launch for the Mun station. And, you know, that was a very cool cinematic shot, spinning around and everything. And, I mean, it was a fairly standard ascent. All of these are going to be very, very standard missions, nothing fancy, except for Lath. We'll talk about Lath. But yes, so here you go. You can just see I've detached those side boosters on that mission, on that mission, wow, on that rocket, and here I've deployed the fairing, not quite yet apparently, and yeah, there goes the fairing, and now I can just finish off doing my orbital insertion into a low Kerbal orbit, and then from there it's just a matter of doing a TMI. Yes, alright, I'm very proud of this. So TMI stands for translunar injection, because with the Apollo astronauts, and I guess for all lunar missions in the real world, there's a burn called a translunar injection, and that's just the burn that extends your orbit all the way out to the orbital height of the moon. But in Kerbal Space Program, it's not called the moon, is it? It's called the Mun, and you get mooner stuff. And so this is a translunar injection. TMI yeah, it's very nice. So as you can see, I've got a nuclear upper stage, just because efficiency, I guess, and I'm there just finishing that TMI, and now I can create a what's it called, a maneuver node at that point there, just to create a very nice low orbit around the Mun. And now that that's happened, I can just deploy solar panels, and as you can see, I put that that satellite dish on a little rotor, I think is what they're called, and just so that it spins, because it looks really cool. So here you can see I am just creating a maneuver node at periapsis in order to do a circularization burn. And yeah, that's just being executed. Now, I am going to run out of things to talk about throughout this entire video, because there are a lot of very long and burns and everything, and I've tried to cut it down quite a bit, but there will still be stuff where I will not have things to talk about. So now you can see I've detached that interstage, I believe that's what I like to call them, that interstage, and I'm just performing my deorbit using that tiny little Mun lander, and now that is almost done. Okay, yeah, I'm getting to a low altitude is what I'm trying to say here. Very high thrust to weight ratio on that lander, so very easy and quick burn. And there you go, touchdown, and yeah, I can just get, what was this person called? L-Wise Kerman to go out on EVA and plant a flag and get back into the vessel, and then just fly flat basically immediately. And then creating a maneuver node at apoapsis, and just to circularize, and then it's just a matter of doing orbital rendezvous and docking to get back to the space station. So here you go. That's just about happening now. I've gotten a very close intersect, and I will be performing the patented, not by me, Lown lazy method of docking, where you just burn retrograde relative to the target, kill your velocity, point towards the target, and then rinse and repeat, and then have the two craft target each other's docking ports, and then they will maintain alignment, and you can just burn slowly towards each other. And so here you can see I have now completed my rendezvous, and now just for that lazy docking, and there it is. I'm docked. We are locked. Alright, so here's my next launch. This is an Ike station, And as you can see, I am an idiot, and I only brought Jebediah Kerman, which means that there will be no one on board the station in order to perform the loud, lazy method of docking. So that gets interesting. Stick around for that, I guess. Yeah. So here you go. I'm just doing the same thing, raising my apoapsis height way out of the atmosphere, and then just creating a maneuver node at apoapsis. This was a very, very efficient ascent. That one I am extremely proud of. I tipped over a huge amount, so that gravity turn was very, very beneficial, and yeah. So as you can see there, my orbital insertion burn, the final orbital insertion burn, was only like 300 meters per second of delta V, which means I had a lot of delta V left in that Wolfhound upper stage, which means that I also have a lot of delta V left in my nuclear stage when I detach it at Ike, which means I can leave room for huge amounts of efficiencies, which is always fun. So there you can see I've just gotten a proper transfer window to Duna. Apparently I didn't do that, so yeah, now I've done that, and I'm just performing my Kerbal escape burn. And since Duna is a very close location, that's not a hugely long burn, especially considering I was basically using the Wolfhound for that entire burn. So I went directly into an Ike encounter, I guess. So just instead of inserting into Duna orbit first, I just went straight into an Ike orbit. So yeah, now I'm just performing a few mid-course correction burns, and then getting that nice close encounter with Ike. Now, I'm not actually sure, but I think it would be really cool if you could do like a gravity assist off Ike to capture into Duna orbit. I'm not sure if it's big enough, but I think I'm gonna try that in any future missions I do. So yeah. So as you can see, now I'm just creating a maneuver node at periapsis to capture into an Ike orbit, and once that is done, I can actually complete that burn. Now here's something interesting. You see how the craft is dark? I originally thought that was just a lighting glitch, but it turns out that I'm actually getting a solar eclipse from Duna, as you can see there, which is really, really cool, I think. So yeah, that's very nice, and that orbital insertion burn around Ike is pretty much done now. It is done now. There you go. So now I can just get ready to detach that lander and land on the surface and come back up, which is always great. So just making a nice circular orbit. Did something with the action groups there, I guess. Oh, I guess to deploy the antenna and solar panels. So there you go. I've detached the nuclear interplanetary stage, I guess. And now I'm detaching the lander and getting ready to perform a landing. Now, Ike is very, very small, which means a very, very small lander, which I enjoy. I like the little itty-bitty landers that you can do in Kerbal Space Program. So there you go, just performing that landing there. Oh, apparently I failed. I should have cut that out. Wow. I am bad at editing. Anyway, there you go. I'm now just doing that landing, and it's done. Very, very soft touchdown. Pretty proud of that. And I'm getting Jebediah Kerman to come out and create or plant a flag, and then just get back in the capsule to ascend back into orbit. And just making sure that my station is directly above Ike in order to, you know, maintain efficiency, I guess. Yeah, that. Exactly. Alright, and then just perform a very, very small burn at apoapsis to get fully injected into an Ike orbit. There you go. And now just complete a orbital rendezvous and docking. Exact same scheme, exact same deal as the first Mun one. And there you go. It's almost done. There. Oh, but there you can see. Oh no, I actually impacted it, but it was the nuclear interstage. And for some reason, the map screen qualified that as a ship instead of a piece of debris, which I find really, really dumb. And I hit it again, actually, because I tried to rendezvous with it twice. I don't know how that happened, but anyway, now to rendezvous with the actual space station, and not be stupid about it. Here you go, just performing a little adjustment burn to get a very close encounter with the space station. There you go, 400 meters out. And then just point towards the target, burn, and then retrograde to kill velocity. And here is where we do our interesting docking method, where we sort of just burn off to the side here, and then kill velocity, and then I'm sort of aligned, and then I burn towards it, and boom, there you go, docked. Even without the loud, lazy method of docking. There you go, and that's the end of the Ike station. And now it is time to do my amazing Paul mission of doom, I guess. And so this time I didn't forget to bring Kerbals, and I brought the 2 Kerbals. I brought 1 engineer and 1 pilot, just because engineers are now amazing. Engineers might be my favorite Kerbal now because of how they can do the EVA construction. It's great. Big fan. 1.11 of Kerbal Space Program. It was great. There you can see the side boosters coming off and the fairing being deployed, and then it's just a matter of performing an orbital insertion burn in order to fully complete my Kerbin orbit. And there that's happening. It's a little slow. I believe that's a Wolfhound stage. I could be wrong, but yeah, I like the Wolfhound engine from the Making History DLC, I think, is where it's from, and just finishing off my orbital insertion with that nuclear stage. So yeah, Wolfhound engine, it's pretty great, pretty high thrust to weight ratio, and stupidly high efficiency as well. So now there is my Kerbin ejection, except I'm going to split up the burn into 2 different burns here, because my thrust to weight ratio is not that high, so it would be an extremely long burn. So I just elongate my orbit a little bit first, and then once that is completed, I just time warp back, or yeah, I time warp all the way around it, like so. First I make another maneuver node at periapsis to eject from Kerbin, and then I time warp around to get to that maneuver node, and I execute it, I guess. Yup, there you go, that's happening. Nuclear engine going off, the Nerve atomic rocket motor, and yeah, it's getting to Joule it's something. I did a lot of Joule missions for this challenge, and recently I've been doing a lot of Joule missions. I've finally actually conquered the Julian system. I guess I didn't do a Joule 5, but I have now been to every single Joule moon, and I have done like a Joule Buster mission where I go into the atmosphere and whatever. So I think it's pretty cool. I did Paul. This was my first Paul mission, and the next one, my Lathe mission, that was my first Lathe mission, and then the Tylo one, my first Tylo mission. So a lot of firsts for my Kerbal Space Program experience with this challenge. The reason I did Lathe instead of something in the same category like Val, because it's easier, is just because I wanted to finish off the Julian system. I wanted to do a Lathe mission, and Lathe is also a really cool destination to visit. So now I've rambled completely through my my orbital mid-flight correction burns and whatnot to get an encounter with Tylo, and now I'm actually in the Julian sphere of influence, and I'm about to execute a maneuver, no, a gravity assist around Tylo to get captured into Julian orbit, and there it is. That was a very nice gravity assist. I'm getting really good at those, not gonna lie, because I've done like 5 of them over the past week. So here you go. Yeah, I'm now just extending my orbit so that it's relatively close to poles, and that I get a pole encounter, which is there. And now that pole encounter is, yeah, it's happening. There you go. So that is basically done now. I've got a very nice pole encounter, and now I can just time warp into Paul's sphere of influence and execute a maneuver node at periapsis in order to get into a stable orbit. I'm coming in at a weird angle here, and I wanted this station to be relatively equatorial. So now that that's done, I've sort of just left it very elongated, and then I do a maneuver node at apoapsis, which is where it's most efficient to do a inclination adjustment. And there you go, my inclination has been adjusted, and then I just do a retrograde burn at periapsis to get a circular orbit. Paul is very, very small, very, very small gravity. I believe it's the second smallest body in the Kerbal system after Gilly. And there you go. As you can see, that lander is absolutely tiny. It's just got one donut fuel tank and a spark engine. That's it. It doesn't even need landing legs. That's how low the gravity of Paul is. So now I have detached that lander from the space station, and I am going to deorbit the lander, and just do a very, very easy landing. I think this was the easiest landing this entire challenge. One of the easiest landings I've ever done, probably. So, yeah. Yeah, running out of things to talk about again. But, luckily, I am saved by the landing being completed, and it's done there. Just tip it onto its side, because the SAS is so strong on Paul that you can just flip it right way. So there you go. Now I've planted a flag, taken a surface sample, done all of those other awesome things that Kerbals do. And there you go. I'm just getting ready to ascend, and now I am ascending. I believe I've done right up here. I think I entered Paul into an orbit that's like orbiting against the rotation of the planet, which is not typically what you want. But Paul is so small and the rotation is so negligible that it basically doesn't matter. So, yeah, there you go. Yeah, it's sort of, the reason I said that is because it just feels weird when you're watching somebody, like, enter an orbit into, going left instead of right. I don't know why, that might just be me, but, yeah, it just sort of looks weird. Anyway, I've rambled through my rendezvous and docking, I think? Or, no, yeah, okay, now I'm docked. There you go. I docked on the dark side, so it was kind of garbage. But here you go. Now I'm done with Paul. And now let's talk about Lathe. So, my Lathe craft was absolutely huge, which is very apparent on the screen. You can see that wobbling just because I didn't do quite enough strutting together. But okay, so let's talk about my first error here. As you can see on your screen, I say that way too much. Oh my god, as you can see. On your screen, there is the single Kerbal. Only one. That's my first dumb mistake. Because then I couldn't do, like, easy rendezvous and docking in Lathian... Lathian? That sounds really cool. Lathian orbit. But it also came back to nip me in the butt a little bit later on in this mission, as will become very apparent soon. And the second thing that I messed up is there's no way to deorbit that lander. Yeah. Now that the fairing is deployed, the lander is exposed, and it's big. It's very big. For anyone who's ever actually done a Lathe mission that doesn't use, like, SSTO type thing, yeah, it's it's very big. So sort of what my thinking was on this mission is that since, like, it's basically Eve. Lathe is basically Eve except smaller. That was my thinking. And therefore, in order to do a Lathe landing and takeoff, you would need basically an Eve craft, just a little bit smaller. And that was really, really stupid of me, because, yeah, that's not the case. Well, maybe it is, but this had so much delta V on it, that lander. Again, this was my first Lathe mission, so I didn't really have any scale, any reference, so I used my delta V calculator, and it was way off. I think my delta V calculator gets very confused when it comes to atmospheres. It doesn't really calculate proper Kerbin ascents, it doesn't really calculate proper Lathe and Eve ascents. I think it does Eve, okay, but Lathe, again, it wasn't great. So I brought enough delta V that the delta V calculator said, but I ended up having, like, 2,000 meters per second of delta V left in the end when I docked back to the craft, to the space station. So now I've rambled through my Kerbin ejection, and, well, I'm also now completing a mid-course correction burn for Joule. And that is there. I'm just doing the same thing, getting an encounter with Tylo, just to launch myself using a gravity assist into a stable orbit around Joule, and then from there I can just hop into a Lathe orbit. That was the plan, at least. So here is my mid-course correction burn right there. Being completed right now. Yup, there it is, done. Okay, now I just need to time warp around into Jules' Sphere of Influence, and then get my Tylo encounter really nice, so that it launches me actually directly into a Lathe encounter, which I think was really cool. It went straight from Tylo right to Lathe. So, yeah. But because of that, I think I was traveling a little bit fast around Lathe, so it was a relatively inefficient capture, which is kind of doo-doo. But luckily, it was a very, very equatorial orbit. I didn't have to do any plane changes, no inclination adjustments, none of that stuff. So now I have gotten a very nice encounter with Lathe, and I'm just about ready to perform my orbital capture, my orbital insertion burn. So here you go. I'm about to... yeah, there you go. The insertion burn has started. It was pretty long, like I said, relatively inefficient. But you know what? I didn't really care at this point. So, yeah, there you go. That's done now, and I am going to do another, or maybe I did do an inclination adjustment. No, I didn't. That's a prograde burn. Never mind. It was just to adjust my orbital height. Anyway, now I'm just performing a circularization burn, or I've made a maneuver node for said circularization burn, and now I am completing the circularization burn. And this is about where I realized that this was never going to work, because I thought that it would be fine. I could deorbit the lander using the interplanetary stage, and I would deorbit the entire thing. But that did not work because I couldn't reinsert the station into a stable orbit because I only had one Kerbal. So that was really, really annoying for me, really frustrating, and I have managed to just talk through that launch completely. Now, this is a rescue launch of sorts to sort of try to salvage this mission. This contains just a single Kerbal, Jesus, I am bad at speech. This contains a single Kerbal, and the Kerbal is basically just there to remain on the station and fix my stupid errors. So now I'm just going to do just the exact same thing. Just do a Tylo capture or a Tylo gravity assist to capture into Joule orbit, and then go straight on to Lathe. So yeah, this was really dumb. Anyway, now I'm in a Julian Sphere of Influence, and I'm just getting a very nice Tylo encounter. And now that is basically done, and I am ready to do that gravity assist. Here it comes. Boom. There you go. Gravity assist completed. I'm fast forwarding through a lot of this. I think I even increased this up to 20 times speed, just because we've already seen this a few times. We don't need to see it again. So here you go. I just needed to time warp around until I got an encounter with Lathe, which I now have, and then just do a very nice... I sort of ran out of fuel in this vessel as well, and I ended up having to fly the Kerbal with the EVA pack like a kilometer or something in orbit. So that's wonderful, I guess. But Kerbals have a huge amount of delta V in those EVA packs anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So I tried to perform a orbital rendezvous and docking, and I even brought a docking port, but I'm an idiot, basically, so none of that. Sort of just do a rendezvous. Well, I did a rendezvous, but I still had a 1 kilometer separation. So that's just about done, and I'm about to begin flying my Kerbal all the way from point craft to point station, I guess. So here you go. Yeah, I'm flying my Kerbal, and just not time warp, but just fly all the way over and just jump into that lander, I guess. Yeah, there you go. And then now I'm basically ready to deorbit the entire station, and then detach the lander, and then reorbit the entire station. Now that is done. I'm inflating the 2 heat shields on either side. I have 2 heat shields on either side to prevent flipping and everything, and it actually took me a few tries to actually land on Lathe, because Lathe is almost entirely water, so to get an island sort of on the equator was very, very difficult. But I did manage in the end, and now that those drogue chutes are fully inflating, then I can just detach that heat shield, that bottom heat shield, and have that fall and destroy itself. And then it's just a matter of time warping down to the surface and giving a tiny little puff of that vector engine right as I land. There you go. So, I also brought those Science Junior units. This craft design is basically ripped off from Matt Lown. He did an Eve tutorial, and this is basically that, except scaled down a tiny bit. So now I'm just about ready to, yeah, I didn't take my Kerbal out because I was an idiot and forgot to bring ladders. So yeah, that was a little dumb, and, yeah, I'm back at the space station there just because I needed to change it to space station so I knew which one to target. I didn't want that stupid Ike mishap to happen again. So there you can see Jewel. Wow, I said it again. You can see Jewel in the background, looking all nice, looming over Ike. Unfortunately, I couldn't see it through the atmosphere here, but that's fine. So yeah, I just did a standard lathe ascent. I don't know if I doubt this is a standard lathe ascent. No, I'm pretty sure it's not a standard lathe ascent. This was really stupid. But yeah, I haven't even detached the outer peripheral tanks. Now I have, but yeah, I had so much Delta V. It's just, I've since learned, and next time I do a lathe mission, it won't be this dumb. So yeah. Now it's just a matter of doing a orbital rendezvous and docking, which is pretty simple, I think, here. I think it would be pretty difficult to return these Kerbals back to Kerbin because Lathe is pretty far in Jewel's gravity well. I would have to do some gravity assists off Lathe and Tylo in order to do that, but yeah, there you go. So, just performing that orbital rendezvous. It took a little while. I don't know why. It was drifting a lot more than it usually does, if that makes any sense whatsoever. But now I'm close enough to actually see the space station, and I've detached the interplanetary stage, and quickly flip around and do a bunch of weird maneuvers and whatnot. And now just the loud, lazy method of docking. Done. Boom. In your face, Kerbal Space Program. That's a lathe mission completed. Yeah. Oh, and another thing I didn't mention is with all the Julian stations, I swapped out solar panels for RTGs. Just, yeah. You can't really use solar panels that far out in the outer Kerbal system. So, yeah, now I'm just performing a Tylo mission. Just a Kerbin ascent. And, yeah, this was a pretty efficient ascent. This was probably one of the best ascents I've ever done. No, that was a different mission. Never mind, I'm an idiot. I think that was the Paul mission. I already talked about that. Forget I said that. Anyway, so, finally a Tylo mission, but starting out with that Tylo mission is my orbital insertion, which is now complete, and I cut out all the orbital faffing about and whatnot, just because we've seen that 3 times already, and there's no need to see it again. But anyway, I just did the same thing. I split up my burn into 2 different burns. I used that Rhino stage to elongate my orbit a little bit by 700 meters per second of delta V, and then I used the nuclear stage to eject from Kerbin and get my apoapsis height way out to the orbital height of Jewel. There you can see the detachment of that Rhino stage and the deployment of that that dish, satellite dish. That's what it's called, communication thing. And anyway, I'm just performing my Kerbin escape burn, and it's gorgeous. I needed 3 nuclear engines on this one instead of just 1 like I had with the other ones, I think. I might have had 3 on the previous one as well. But yeah, just because Tylo landers are very, very bulky because of how difficult it is to land on Tylo. Anyone who's ever done a Tylo mission will know that. So yeah, I just decided to inject directly into Tylo orbit because I had a lot of spare delta V because I used that Rhino stage for a lot of my ejection. So yeah, it's gorgeous. Just my Tylo has been completed. My stable Tylo injection orbital injection speechant. exactly. There you go. So, I just wanted to do a quick inclination plane change, and that is complete there. And then lower my orbit down so that it's basically circular. I have been talking for like half an hour now, and my throat is dying. Anyway, that you did not need to know that, but you know what? Screw you, it's my channel. I can tell you about my dying throat all I want. So yeah, that orbital insertion or orbital circularization is done now. And it's basically time for me to just eject or detach that lander and perform my deorbit, which is, yeah, it's happening now. I'm detaching the lander right there. Yeah, there it is. I had to throw it away a little bit because the first time I did this, I just detached it and it accidentally redocked, which was really dumb. So I loaded a quick save and tried it again, and now I'm officially deorbited. Now, I did not anticipate, like, how early you need to start that Tylo burn. So I had to do this a few times, and because of how early I had to start that Tylo burn, I ended up landing on the night side. I couldn't even see where the floor was. I was instrument flying at this point. So there you go. That's basically done. I'm sorry, my phone is very loud. Anyway, now I did remember to add ladders on this lander. So there you go. I took down the flag and I wanted it to be on the sun so you can see that Falcon Heavy there. I thought that was pretty funny, just to have a Falcon Heavy flag. And there you go. I've now re-embarked that lander, and I'm just performing an ascent. I tried to fly flat almost immediately, but that didn't work too well because there was a ridge on the edge of that crater. So I sort of just burned upwards a little bit to get above that ridge, and then just kept flying. So yeah, it's pretty awesome to do a Tylo mission. I think I can finally consider myself, I don't know what I was gonna say there. I was gonna say good at the game or something, but then I decided not to because that sounds really cocky. So I'm not gonna say that. I'm going to say I can finally consider myself able to do Tylo. There you go. I saved it. Don't worry about me. So now I just a matter of flipping back and forth to reach that that craft there, and I almost hit it, but I didn't. So there you go. I'm doing a very nice docking. There you go. Yeah, and then I can just detach that thing. Thank you all very much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Yeah, bye-bye.